Okay, so make sure you have paper and pencil. Please go ahead and stop the video so that you can copy down the title. We are going to do several examples today. We are multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So again, quick reminder, rational expressions. That phrase means that we are dealing with fractions. Okay. So our first example, number 1, is we have d plus 4 divided by 3. And we're going to divide that by d minus 2. Okay. So we can multiply by the reciprocal. Of the second one. So I'm going to multiply by, right now that is over 1, so it's going to become 1 over d minus 2. Now, usually you want to look to see, does this polynomial cancel with this one? They're not identical, so that they can't. And do any of my monomials cancel? Nope, they can't. So this is the unique case where nothing actually cancels. So 1 distributed is d plus 4. 3, you can leave it like that, or you can actually leave it as 3 times d minus 2. You can distribute and it would become 3d minus 6. Either one of those is fine. Okay, our next example. 8 over d squared divided by 32d minus 8. Okay, now again, what did we do in the last problem? So we're going to take the first one, keep it the same, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the second. So this is over 1. So 1 over. Now, before I actually write this, 32d minus 8 could factor. So it could factor into 8 times 4d minus 1. And the reason I'm going to write it like that is because then I can see what factors can cancel with each other. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. So both of those reduce to 1. And then nothing else can reduce, so I multiply 1 times 1 is 1. And I'm going to leave this as d squared times 4d minus 1. I don't have to distribute, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, number 3. So we've done 2 examples where we are dividing. Now let's do an example where we're multiplying. So h squared over 2h plus 4. And we're multiplying by 2h plus 4. Okay, now I like to see the fraction, so I'm going to put it over 1. And lucky for us, we don't have to multiply by the reciprocal because we're already multiplying. And we have 2 polynomials that are identical and they can reduce to 1 and 1. H squared times 1 is h squared. 1 times 1 is 1. So I can just leave it like that. All right, our next problem. We have 7v divided by 5v plus 1. And we're multiplying it by 40v plus 8. Now, again, this doesn't have a fraction, so I'm just going to make it over 1. Okay, and then I'm going to rewrite this as 8 times 5v plus 1 because it can factor out a GCF. Now, I have identical polynomials on top and bottom, so they reduce to 1 because when they divide by themselves, they become 1. 7v times 8, that would become 56v over 1 times 1. I can write the 1 on the bottom. I don't have to. Okay, we're going to do 2 more problems. So we have p cubed minus p squared divided by 2p squared plus 17p plus 8. And we are dividing that by p squared. Okay, this first one. I'm going to factor it. So p squared is a GCF of the top, so p minus 1. And then the denominator, in order to factor that, I have to multiply the 2 times the 8 to get 16. So 2 times 8 is 16. Two numbers that multiply to 16 but add to 17, well, that's 16 and 1. So this would become p plus 16 and p plus 1. However, I have a different coefficient out front, so I'm going to divide by 2. And this becomes p plus 8. And this one becomes 2p plus 1. So I'm going to erase this step right here and move this up top. Okay? Now, the other one, divided by p squared, because we're dividing, I'm going to multiply it by the reciprocal. Oops, in pen. So 1 over p squared. Okay, so now we can cancel things out. So we have p squared and p squared. They reduce to 1. And then, unfortunately, nothing else cancels. So I can leave this as p minus 1 over. Since my original did not cancel, I can rewrite it in standard form or I can write it in factored form. It doesn't matter. Since it's in factored, I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, we're going to do one last problem. We have y minus 4 divided by 6y cubed minus 30y squared. We are dividing by y squared minus 3y minus 4 over 6y cubed minus 30y squared. Okay. Normally I would factor all steps, but guess what? The denominator here is the same as the denominator here. So when I multiply by the reciprocal, y minus 4 over 6y cubed minus 30y squared, if I multiply and I keep it the same, then it's easier to see that they are the same. Now, I'm going to go ahead and factor this. So 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. So that would become negative 4 and 1 because they add to negative 3. So y minus 4 and y plus 1. I'm dividing by a 1 and that doesn't change anything. So, okay, so that's what this became. Now, y minus 4 is the same as y minus 4. Those both reduce to 1. 6y cubed minus 30y squared divides by itself over here. So all I'm left with is 1 times 1 on top, 1 times y plus 1 on the bottom. So that simplified quite nicely. Okay, make sure you wrote down any questions that you had, and feel free to go rewatch any parts. Otherwise, we will go over this in class, and you'll get to practice on IXL.